No one knew who he was. That quiet old man eating in silence among killers was the only one there who didn't have to run from anyone, because everyone was already running from the name he carried. He looked fragile, forgotten, harmless, but every slow bite was a warning in disguise. Real monsters don't roar. They wait. And when the cold water slid down his white hair, something inside him woke up. Right there, surrounded by laughter and indifferent eyes, hell opened its doors. Not for the old man, but for the bully who thought he was being funny and unknowingly declared war on an invisible, deadly empire. The cafeteria of the Santa Rosalia Federal Rehabilitation Center in northern Mexico was packed. The noise of trays, boots, and voices bounced off the gray walls like a muffled growl. It was lunchtime, the tensest moment of the day. Every crew had its corner: local gangs, ex-military guys, cartel soldiers, the quiet ones. And among them sat Rafael El Lobo Navarro, the most feared man in the place. Tattoos crawled across his skin like battle maps. He was the unofficial king of that prison, the kind of man who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. One look from him was enough to shut anyone up. But that day, something threw him off. At the far end of the room, an old man with white hair, calm eyes, and a straight spine ate alone, ignoring stares, taunts, and all those unwritten rules. His name was Don Emilio Vargas, 72 years old, new arrival, convicted of money laundering and ties to foreign groups, yet there was nothing defeated about him. "Look at Grandpa over there," Rafael sneered. "Think you walked into a nursing home, old man?" The others laughed. Don Emilio didn't even blink. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Rafael barked, standing up. "Here, we give newcomers a proper welcome." Silence fell over the cafeteria. Everyone knew what was coming. Rafael grabbed a metal cup, filled it with water, and walked toward the old man. Each step echoed like a countdown. Don Emilio didn't flinch, didn't stand, didn't show fear. He just held his chopsticks, eyes on his food, as if none of it concerned him. When the freezing water hit his head, slow and deliberate, everyone expected a reaction. But Don Emilio didn't move. Not a word. He simply lifted his gaze, calm, steady, and deep enough to make Rafael hesitate for half a second. Then pride kicked in and he laughed again. "Welcome to hell, old man. I run this place." Don Emilio wiped his face with his sleeve, picked up the chopsticks, and said quietly but firmly, "That's what you think, hijo." Rafael's jaw tightened. "What did you just say?" "I said a man who has to remind others he's in charge. Never really was." The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Guards glanced over but didn't intervene. Rafael gripped the table so hard the metal groaned beneath his hands. Don Emilio rose slowly. The size difference between them was ridiculous. He barely reached the man's shoulder, yet somehow it was Rafael who took a step back, without knowing why. "You should learn to pick your battles," Don Emilio said as he walked away. No guard stopped him. No one laughed. The silence he left behind weighed heavier than any threat. Later, down the corridors, the rumors began to spread. "That old guy's weird. People say he used to work with the cartels. I heard he vanished for 20 years after the war in Sonora. Maybe he killed someone important." But nobody knew the truth. In cell 32B, Don Emilio quietly cleaned his hands, eyes lost in thought. Inside the wall, hidden behind a loose brick he'd noticed the first night, lay a small sealed envelope marked with a crowned serpent, a symbol not seen in over 2 decades. For those who still remembered, it meant La Corona del Norte, one of Mexico's oldest, most secretive cartels, officially wiped out after the 1999 massacre. Don Emilio was its last living bloodline, the silent heir, the man everyone thought was dead. Rafael, meanwhile, couldn't sleep. That cold stare haunted him. He didn't understand why he'd frozen, why his body refused to move in front of that frail old man. But deep down, something told him this story wasn't over. The next day, the old man showed up in the cafeteria again. Same table, same silence. And Raphael decided that this time he'd finish what he started. What he didn't know, what no one in Santa Rosalia knew, was that Don Emilio Vargas wasn't the kind of man who forgave. He just waited for the right moment to strike, and when he did, the whole prison would remember his name. The sun burned over the Sonoran desert when the rumor started spreading through the blocks. Something had changed inside San Lucero. The guards were acting different, their stares tighter. Even the warden avoided walking past cell block B, the one where old Don Emilio Vargas slept in silence. No one could explain it, but his presence was starting to weigh on everyone. The guards called him El Viejo. The inmates called him El Fantasma, the ghost. That morning, the cafeteria was unusually quiet. Rafael El Toro Valdez Ate, surrounded by his men, trying to hide the unease that had haunted him since the water incident. Every time he crossed paths with Don Emilio in the corridors, something inside his chest tightened, and he had no idea why. The old man moved slow, hands behind his back, eyes on the floor, yet wherever he walked, the air seemed to shift. It was like he carried a weight no one could see, but everyone could feel. Out in the yard, a guard called to him discreetly and handed him a pack of cigarettes. Inside was a folded note. "The serpent rises again." Don Emilio lit one up, looked toward the horizon and smiled, for the first time since his arrival. In the Latino wing, tension was climbing fast. Rumors said men tied to La Corona del Norte had been spotted near the border, a convoy intercepted, a federal agent gone missing. Inside San Lucero, no one knew who was giving orders, but factions were shifting alliances overnight. Raphael noticed it. His influence was slipping. Some of his crew avoided his gaze now. Others whispered when the old man crossed the yard. One afternoon during yard time, 2 guards approached Don Emilio, respectfully. One of them, nervous, handed him a brown envelope. Raphael watched from a distance. The old man read a single line, then burned the paper. Ashes drifted over the hot concrete. "Who the hell does that old man think he is?" Raphael growled. "Don't know, bro, but even the guards take orders from him," one of his guys muttered. That was unacceptable. Raphael needed to remind everyone who ran this place. That night, he ordered 2 of his men to visit cell 32B. "Make sure the old bastard remembers where he is," he said. What happened next became prison legend. Just after midnight, the corridor lights flickered. Muffled screams, footsteps running. When the guards got there, the 2 men were on the floor, bruised, eyes wide open in terror. Neither could explain what happened. One swore the old man never even moved, said a shadow came out of nowhere and dropped them in seconds. The next morning, Don Emilio walked into the cafeteria like nothing had happened, washed his hands, grabbed his tray, sat at the same table. Raphael watched him unsettled. "You did it, didn't you?" he said, stepping closer. Don Emilio lifted his eyes, calm as ever. "Me? My guys got jumped. Somebody attacked them. Maybe fate did it," the old man replied with a faint smile. "Or maybe they just forgot that life always collects its debts." Silence fell again. For the first time, Raphael realized he wasn't in control anymore. The eyes weren't on him, they were on the old man. Days later, a federal inspection was announced. That same night, the warden vanished. A new commander arrived, dark suit, cold stare, northern accent. As he walked through the block, he stopped at cell 32B. "Don Emilio," he said, nodding slightly. "Your instructions have been received. Everything's in motion." From the second-floor bars, Raphael watched in disbelief. The old man didn't just have influence, he had power. That night, the prison lights went out for a few seconds. When they came back, the symbol of La Corona del Norte was spray-painted across the main yard wall. No one saw who did it, but everyone knew what it meant. Don Emilio Vargas wasn't just an old man. He was the return of something Mexico thought it had buried decades ago. And Rafael El Toro Valdez, the man who mocked him, was starting to realize he'd picked a fight with the wrong kind of enemy, one who didn't need to raise his voice to burn everything down. Because real power, he learned too late, speaks in silence, and that silence had already begun to consume him. The days that followed had no routine. Chaos was replaced by quiet, and the quiet had an owner. Guards exchanged nervous looks. Inmates whispered. The name Don Emilio Vargas was no longer gossip. It was code. When someone said, "El Viejo sent word," no one asked twice. In the cafeteria, the old man still sat at the same table, same posture, same calm. But the air around him was different. His tray was served first. Guards no longer frisked him. And a new kind of respect, the kind born from fear, spread through the halls. Meanwhile, outside those walls, something was moving. Up north, trucks crossed the desert at night with unknown cargo. Armed men gathered along old smuggling routes, and over cartel radios and federal channels alike, one name echoed again: La Corona del Norte. No one knew who was running the reorganization, but inside San Lucero, Don Emilio knew every move, as if he was still seated on his blood-stained throne. Rafael watched it all with a mix of rage and dread. Day by day, he was losing ground. Some of his allies now worked for the old man. Others simply vanished. One afternoon, Rafael found a note tucked under his mattress. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate. The debts of the fathers always fall upon the sons. He froze. No one in San Lucero knew, but Rafael's father, Arturo Valdez, had been one of the men responsible for wiping out La Corona del Norte in 1999. Or so they thought. He tore the note apart and flushed it, but the fear stayed. That night, he heard footsteps outside his cell. Whispers. "You shouldn't have messed with the old man." Days later, 2 army trucks surrounded San Lucero. Officers came in without explanation, swapping papers, whispering orders. When they left, 3 inmates were transferred. None ever came back. In the isolation wing, Don Emilio watched through the tiny window of his cell. He'd just received another envelope, delivered by the new warden, younger, more obedient. Inside was a single photo. Rafael sitting in his cell, head down. On the back, one short line: "The Valdez family no longer exists." The next morning, guards escorted Rafael to the yard for routine work. There, he found the old man waiting, seated in a plain chair, hands resting on his lap. "What do you want from me?" Rafael demanded, trying to sound strong. Don Emilio raised his gaze. "I want you to understand what power really is." "Power? You're just an old man locked in a cell." The old man smiled slowly. "And yet, you're standing here because I told them to bring you." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the guards held their breath. Don Emilio stood, took a few steps closer until their eyes met. "Your father tried to erase my name from history, but some things don't die. They wait." You killed my father?" "No. Fate did. I just wrote the ending." He turned away and walked toward the exit. Before crossing the gate, he said without looking back, "The hell you were looking for. It's already here." Rafael dropped to his knees, trembling. That night, a fire broke out in the north wing. No alarms, no guards moved. When the smoke cleared, the name El Toro Valdez disappeared from San Lucero's roster. The official report said accident, but everyone inside knew the truth. Nothing happens by accident when the past comes calling. And beneath those blood-stained walls, every soul in San Lucero understood the message. La Corona del Norte was alive, and the man they once called the Old One now ruled hell with nothing but a look. When the gates of San Lucero closed behind Don Emilio Vargas for the last time, no one understood how it had happened. There was no paperwork, no escort, no official notice, just absence. The old man was simply gone, and somehow fear began spreading through every corner of Mexico. That morning, a thick fog rolled over the Sonora border. Truckers reported convoys moving under the guard of men with no uniforms, but all bearing the same painted mark on their vehicles, a crowned serpent. The newspapers said nothing, but in the corridors of power, ministers and generals went quiet. The name La Corona del Norte was back in circulation, no longer as a memory, but as a presence. Far from Culiacan, inside an old hacienda that smelled of burned wood and gasoline, a group of men sat around a heavy oak table. When the clock struck midnight, the gates creaked open. 2 black cars rolled in. From one of them stepped the man the world believed had been dead for decades. Don Emilio walked slowly to the table. The same calm eyes, the same quiet that had terrified killers inside prison. "Gentlemen," he said softly, each word sharp as glass. The crown never fell. It merely waited for the right moment to rise again. Across the country in Tamaulipas, 3 faction bosses vanished in 24 hours. In Chihuahua, entire warehouses changed hands without a single shot fired. And in the backstreets of Mexico City, fresh graffiti appeared overnight. La Corona vive. Inside San Lucero, the inmates felt it too. The old man was gone, but his shadow lingered. Guards followed orders that came from above. Gangs began reorganizing under a single code. Cell 32B became a shrine. No one touched it. In the corner, the same loose brick remained, and behind it, carved with a blade, a serpent and a phrase in Old Spanish, El silencio gobierna. Silence rules. Rafael Valdez, once the most feared man in San Lucero, was now just a whisper, but his fate served as a warning. No one challenged the Vargas name anymore. Without raising his voice, Don Emilio rebuilt the old network. He bought loyalty with silence, forged alliances through fear, and restored an empire using the same weapon that made him legend: patience. Meanwhile, police radios began crackling with new codes. F-47, zones where no one goes in, no one comes out. And in federal intelligence reports, one phrase started repeating, "The ghost is back." The old man rarely showed his face. Some said he lived on an isolated ranch, surrounded by desert and mirror-still ponds, watching the world in silence. Others swore he had vanished again, leaving only orders, messengers, and myths. But one thing was certain: Mexico was once again divided by invisible lines, and every one of them led back to the same name. The man who once ate in silence among killers, endured humiliation, and waited. The man who turned patience into a weapon. The man who never had to shout to make the whole world listen. Don Emilio Vargas, heir to La Corona del Norte. And for those who still doubted he existed, one reminder was enough. Some monsters don't die. They just go quiet, until someone's foolish enough to wake them. Helicopters began circling Sonora before dawn. Searchlights cut through the desert as military convoys rolled across the highways, radios crackling with orders no one dared to question. The Mexican government called it a routine operation. But those who knew, the ones who'd felt the name La Corona del Norte whispering again through the halls of power, understood. This was fear wearing the mask of control. Inside the National Palace, the new Secretary of Security flipped through reports that read like they'd been pulled from another century. "This can't be right," he muttered. "The Corona was destroyed 20 years ago." His aide, pale and trembling, replied, "Sir, we found identical seals to the old ones. They're active in 4 states, and there's a pattern. All the roots trace back to one name, Vargas." Don Emilio no longer needed to hide. In a quiet house outside Hermosillo, he met at night with men in suits and retired officers. No word was wasted. Every meeting was an agreement sealed in silence. He didn't threaten, he didn't shout, he simply listened. and decided. His power no longer came from violence, but from the memory it left behind. While the army raided ranches and blocked highways, the empire moved through the shadows. Trucks switched routes, warehouses appeared in ghost towns, and money flowed through paths no satellite could trace. Trying to stop it was like trying to catch the wind. And with every attempt, the state lost a little more control. Inside San Lucero, the legend only grew. New inmates whispered about the old man who once defied the prison king and walked out a living myth. The veteran guards, those few still alive, told stories of nights when the air itself changed whenever someone spoke his name. Outside, the silent war had already begun. A military convoy was ambushed in Durango. A federal judge was found dead at home, no signs of struggle. At every scene, the same symbol appeared, quietly painted on a wall, a crowned serpent. The government struck back, press conferences, raids, promises of justice. But nothing slowed the invisible advance of Don Emilio. Every arrest, every seizure was just a diversion. Behind the curtain, he was rearranging the board. One night, a TV journalist finally did what no one else had. She tracked down one of Vargas's old properties. She arrived with her crew, cameras rolling, and found only an empty ranch. In the center of the dusty hall, on a single chair, lay a handwritten note. Silence is the only truth that survives a lie. The next day, the reporter vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, ministers argued, generals shouted, and no one agreed on how to deal with the old man. But they all shared one thing: fear. Fear of facing an enemy who didn't need to appear. Because Don Emilio didn't need weapons. He had memory, loyalty, and time. And against those, no government stands a chance. As dusk fell over the mountains of Sonora, a new message crackled through intercepted military radios. El viejo ya está en movimiento. Priority 1 alert. No one could decode where it was headed. What they didn't know was that Don Emilio had already made his move, and it wouldn't be a war for territory, it would be a war of shadows, where silence kills long before the sound of gunfire ever begins. The nights in Sonora had grown long again. What once were the sounds of the wind were now the hum of drones and the thrum of helicopters. The borders were closed, the roads sealed. The government claimed control, yet the tighter they tried to close their grip on the desert, the more it seemed to belong to Don Emilio Vargas. Behind the scenes, a covert mission was born, Operation Black Sand. Objective: locate, capture, and eliminate the man who had risen from the ashes of his own legend, an enemy with no face, no voice, and, according to intelligence reports, capable of moving people, weapons, and information as if he commanded the very air itself. General Salazar, a war-hardened veteran with ice in his veins, was put in charge. During an emergency meeting in Mexico City, he stared at the map marked in red, routes of trafficking and influence spreading like veins. "He's everywhere," Salazar growled, pounding the table, "and nowhere at the same damn time." An aide spoke up quietly. "Sir, old depots are active again. We believe La Corona del Norte is fully operational." Salazar narrowed his eyes. "That's impossible. They were all wiped out." "Not all," the aide replied, sliding a photograph across the table. It showed a man with white hair, calm eyes, and 2 silent guards at his side. Salazar read the name beneath it and muttered, "Don Emilio Vargas." While the state mobilized tanks, drones, and soldiers, Don Emilio deployed the only weapon he ever truly needed: his mind. His messages traveled without words, his orders crossed borders through glances, and every man who followed him believed not just in power, but in legacy. To them, he wasn't a criminal. He was a symbol, a man who had cheated death and humiliated the very system that once tried to erase him. In political circles, fear seeped in like poison. Senators started vanishing. Government-linked companies were quietly bought out by anonymous investors. And every money trail, no matter how deep, led to one seal, the crowned serpent. Inside San Lucero, new inmates still told the story of the old man. One of them, covered in tattoos, had the serpent inked across his back. When asked why, he said simply, "He saved me." Saved you from what? From believing the government's in charge. Out in the desert, Don Emilio watched the sunrise. Beside him, a young orphan, one of the many he had taken in from the streets, handed him an encrypted phone. "Sir, General Salazar's coming for you." The old man smiled. "He thinks he's coming, but he's already right where I want him." At that exact moment, in a military base outside Hermosillo, communications began to fail. Screens flickered, then went dark. On one of them, a final message appeared before the system crashed. "You don't hunt silence, it swallows you." In Mexico City, the president gathered his Security Council. "This man is mocking the state," he shouted. "I want him alive or dead." A minister, pale and trembling, replied, "Sir, there are rumors that people inside your own cabinet are working for him." The president glared at him. "That's impossible." "With all due respect," the minister said quietly, "that's exactly what they said 20 years ago." While politicians argued and generals lost their grip, Don Emilio became myth. Some said he controlled half the north. Others swore he'd retired, living among monks in a mountain chapel. But those who truly knew him understood. He never stopped. Every government move only strengthened him. Every attempt to hunt him opened another door. The old man knew one truth. In Mexico, fear was the real currency, and he owned every coin. So when General Salazar finally received the order to strike and launched his troops toward one of the suspected ranches, he found only a single envelope on a dusty table. Inside, a note, handwritten, deliberate. "The war began the day you believed I was a prisoner." Salazar tore it up, but it was already too late. The helicopters started exploding before they even lifted off. No one understood how, but Don Emilio did. The state fought with weapons, he fought with time, and time was all the old man ever needed. The whole country held its breath. Headlines screamed, "Largest anti-crime offensive in decades." But in the streets, no one believed it. People already knew, when the government talks about control, chaos is about to begin. In the capital, Salazar prepared his final move. 10,000 soldiers, recon drones, armored tanks, the entire weight of the state aimed at one man, Don Emilio Vargas. The plan was simple: surround the suspected ranches, cut communications, and capture him alive. But from the very first map, every route, every radio frequency, every movement had already been predicted. Up north, Don Emilio's allies waited in silence. No shouts, no meetings, just coded bursts over the radio, pauses measured to the second. At midnight, the lights across Sonora flickered once and went out. Total blackout. The offensive had begun, just not by the government. Salazar, furious, tried contacting command. Nothing. Outside, the desert seemed to swallow sound itself. Then came the explosions. 1, 2, 3. Not direct hits, but warnings. Each detonation took out a base. No casualties, just precision. "He's not trying to kill us," whispered a soldier. "He's showing us that he can." From a mountain terrace, Don Emilio watched it all unfold. The same worn coat he'd worn the day he entered prison hung from his shoulders. Beside him, an old radio crackled with the frantic voices of the generals. He listened to the panic, the confusion, the fear, then switched it off. "The war's over," he said quietly. "They just haven't realized it yet." By morning, the government declared victory. "We have dismantled the remaining structure of La Corona del Norte," announced the spokesman. But behind closed doors, classified reports told another story. Intact depots, untouched routes, and the serpent symbol reappearing even inside government buildings. The name Don Emilio Vargas was no longer spoken. Now they called him El Viejo Rey, the old king. A myth that had crossed generations, prisons and borders without ever raising his voice. Weeks later, the troops withdrew. The silence returned. And the people did what they always do, adapted. But in the shadows, something lingered. Among soldiers who'd survived the operation, a new saying began to circulate: "Don't wake the king." And there, in the vast desert of Sonora, the man once humiliated before killers still lived, sitting before the sunrise with the calm gaze of someone who understands eternity. Because those who rule through fear die fast, but those who rule through silence never disappear. Dawn rose blood-red over the Sonoran desert. The air smelled of metal and dust. Helicopters sliced through the sky as plumes of smoke rose from the abandoned ranches. The final offensive had begun. The Mexican government told the world that the fall of La Corona del Norte was at hand. But what no one knew, not even the generals leading the assault, was that this day wouldn't mark the end of an empire. It would mark the death of an illusion, the illusion of control. At command headquarters, General Salazar stared at the monitors, eyes sunken with exhaustion. "Move in," he ordered. "No survivors." The troops advanced like shadows across the sand. Every step followed a flawless plan. But that plan wasn't theirs. Across the desert, in a house surrounded by cacti and silence, Don Emilio Vargas buckled a wristwatch, the same one he'd worn the day he was arrested. Around him, a handful of loyal men waited in complete quiet. On the table lay a map of Mexico, red lines crossing blue circles, and in the corner, a sealed folder stamped with the crowned serpent crest. "Señor," one of the men said, "they're coming." The old man inhaled slowly. "Let them." The desert never swallows those who understand it. At 6 a.m., the assault began. Explosions rattled the dunes. Tanks rolled. Drones swept the skies. But soon, something went wrong. Comms went dead. Maps flipped. Routes marked safe led straight into dead ends, minefields and canyons. The army had walked straight into a silent trap. Suddenly, the monitors at headquarters went black. Then a single image appeared, a crowned serpent and a line written in red. "You didn't surround a man. You surrounded Mexico itself." Salazar ripped off his headset, pale. "How the hell did he do this?" he shouted. A trembling tech replied, "He's inside our network, sir. He's been there from the start." Out in the field, soldiers began hearing voices over the radios, whispers in Old Spanish, prayers, commands with no source. Some dropped their weapons, others ran. And when the dust settled, the army that was supposed to capture Don Emilio no longer existed. The old man stepped onto the porch. The desert shimmered in the sunlight like fire. He looked out at the burning vehicles in the distance. "I've fought men for decades," he said quietly. "Now, I fight shadows, but even shadows obey." By afternoon, the government declared a state of emergency. But the truth never reached the people. Reports were burned, broadcasts cut, and instead of victory, the nation fell into silence. 3 days later, General Salazar was found dead in his office. On his desk lay a single envelope, signed with a hand-drawn mark, the crowned serpent. Across the northern border, military operations ceased. Regional commanders vanished. And as if the desert itself had swallowed it all, no evidence remained of what truly happened that morning. But in the villages of Sonora, truckers swore they saw a convoy crossing the road at dusk, black cars, tinted windows, and in the back seat, a white-haired man with steady hands clutching a rosary. Some said they heard an old radio playing El Rey by José Alfredo Jiménez echoing through the night. The war's over, people said, but those who understood power knew better. Wars like that never end. They just change owners, and that old man, once humiliated among killers, had become the shadow ruling an entire country without ever leaving home. Because the power born of vengeance can fade, but the power born of silence is eternal. Time passed, yet the name Don Emilio Vargas lingered across Mexico like a whisper that refused to die. To the people, he was legend. To the powerful, a ghost they could never bury. And to those who had met him, even for a moment, he was living proof that true power is never seen, only felt. Authorities declared victory, closed the reports, rebuilt the bases. But in every northern town, signs told a different story. Old smuggling routes reopened, politicians disappeared, and the crowned serpent began appearing again, on walls, in graffiti on skin. A silent reminder that La Corona del Norte still breathed. In San Lucero, the prison where it all began, the cells were repainted, the guards replaced. But one cell remained untouched, 32B. The warden called it superstition. The inmates knew better. Anyone who slept there dreamed of the old man and woke to the sound of slow footsteps as if he still walked those halls. Time turned the man into myth. Some say Don Emilio died alone in the desert, staring at the horizon. Others swear they saw him in a church in Sinaloa, lighting candles for the souls lost along the way. But the oldest, the ones who'd lived through the terror and the glory of La Corona, they insist he's still alive, watching from afar. One cold morning, an anonymous journalist received a package. No sender. Inside, a cassette tape and a handwritten note. On the tape, an aged voice said, "Don't try to understand power. It can't be explained, it just changes shape. The government calls crime what it can't control. The law calls evil what it can't defeat. I call it balance, and balance always returns." The reporter never published the story. Weeks later, he vanished, and the package found its way into the wrong hands. Decades have passed, yet the name Don Emilio Vargas remains forbidden in certain circles. But in roadside bars and dusty cantinas, old men sip tequila and whisper with nervous laughter, "El Viejo never left, he just stopped warning us." Because in Mexico, there are things even time won't challenge, and among them is the power of the man who turned silence into an empire. The wind crosses the Sonoran desert like an old memory. On the horizon, the sun rises slow, painting the sand in gold and blood. A lone truck rattles down the road, kicking up dust, and the driver swears he saw him, a white-haired man, hat in hand, standing beside a weathered cross, staring into nothing. When he blinked, the man was gone. Some say Don Emilio Vargas died long ago, swallowed by his own legend. Others claim he still walks forgotten towns, watching the world he built in silence. But no one dares speak his name aloud. Because in Mexico, certain names never die, they just sleep. And when the wind blows again across the northern hills, some swear they hear the same words whispered by the desert itself. Silence rules. If this story gripped you from start to finish, don't forget to leave a like, share it with someone who'd love it, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done? Your opinion means a lot and helps the channel grow. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next story. If you're craving more tension, twists, and powerful endings, check out the other videos on the channel. There are plenty more waiting for you.